Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Sports Rambling. Today, I'm going to take you on a little guided tour through my fandom of the San Francisco Giants, and our final destination is going to be the 2020 baseball season and how I think they're going to fare. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Sports Rambling. I'm your host, Brian Belcito, and I wanted to just sit down with you guys today and give you a little bit of a guided tour through my history of my fandom for my baseball team, the San Francisco Giants. I wanted to give you a little background as to how I became a fan, some of the players, some of the early memories I have of them, and then I really want to finish up the show by giving you a preview into what I think is going to happen with them during this shortened 2020 season because of COVID. So, let's see. Thinking back through my history as a Giants fan, a lot of times I'll sit down with people, either somebody I work with or somebody I went to school with, or on the internet in a chat room, and somebody will ask me. They'll find out my background and find out I'm from Southern California, and they'll be like, "So, how did you become a San Francisco Giants fan?" Growing up in Orange County, California, all the way down in Southern California, which is mainly Dodgers and Angels fans. The way I answer that usually has something to do with my family roots being from Philadelphia, it being the 70s and the 80s, and there wasn't really ESPN and the internet to keep you up to date and really grow that love for a far out of market team that's all the way on the East Coast. So I think I ended up following the Giants just because at a young age, because they had some players that I really liked. I really wanted to be a contrarian around the schoolyard and kind of be that guy that everybody, all the Dodger fans are like, ooh, the Giants and that kind of thing. So, that's basically how it got started. Some of the players that were playing around 1981 or so, when I was about 8 years old, and I was starting to really formulate an idea of how I was comprehending sports and what I was seeing. So some of the players were guys like Chili Davis, Joe Morgan, Darrell Evans. And another thing that really stood out to me about the Giants was the way that their stadium presented on television. So, they had the chain link fence, which was super unique. You had hot dog wrappers blowing all around the field and the stadium because of the wind in San Francisco. You had Vin Scully always talking about how cold it would get, and you had that Dodger-Giant rivalry, which has always been there. It's been there since they were both in New York, and then they moved out to California at the same time. So it was always fun to have that big rivalry that you really respected. So I'm going to bring a video on right now of one of my very first memories as a Giants fan that really solidified it for me. As much as something can be solidified when you're 9 years old. But Joe Morgan, 1982. I know this is a little bit painful for Dodger fans, but guess what? I don't care. Last day of the season, the prior night, the Dodgers had knocked the Giants out of playoff contention. Now we're on the last day of the season. It is the seventh inning. It's tied 2-2. Joe Morgan is at the plate with 2 runners aboard, and I am going to let the rest show on the video.
Flip one of that somewhere. Come on. Get on there, we'll beat him. Come on.
The 1-2 pitch. Warren belts it high and deep right field. Way back goes Monday to the fence. It is gone. Home run, Joe Morgan. And the Giants lead the Dodgers 5-2.
So there you have it. That was probably my first big memory as a Giants fan, seeing Joe Morgan do that, and it really stuck out with me. That knocking the Dodgers out of the playoffs, sending the Braves to the playoffs in 1982, where they would eventually lose to the Cardinals in the playoffs. So that was the first memory that really, I had seen Giants games, I'd followed the Giants, I'd collected cards of the players I spoke about earlier, but that moment right there was really the first moment when I was like, all right, I got something here that I'm gonna root for. There were some lean seasons there in the early 80s. So fast forward to 1989, I want to take you through this moment here that was a big moment for me. Now, Will Clark became my all-time favorite baseball player prior to 1989. I became a big fan of him in his rookie season. He came up from the minor leagues after having a great career at Mississippi State University. He's a ball player that plays the game the way that I just love to play the game. He was hard-nosed, intense. So this clip I'm going to show you guys here is probably the moment where, now I'm 16 years old, I'm invested totally. This is game 1 of the National League Championship Series. One of the things that makes this unique is Clark at first base for the Giants. The Cubs had Mark Grace, who played baseball at the same school that I played at in Southern California, a baseball powerhouse called Tustin High School. He was about 5 or maybe more like 8 to 10 years ahead of me in the program, but it was really cool to have him at that time playing in the majors and being able to relate to it that way. But this was my boy Will Clark. He's facing one of the all-time great pitchers, Greg Maddux, in Game 1 of the NLCS. One of the stories behind this is that there's as Will Clark is stepping up to the plate with the bases loaded, the pitching coach for the Cubs goes to the mound. Will Clark, legend has it, read Greg Maddux's lips as he was talking to his fellow, the number 4 hitter behind him, Kevin Mitchell. He said to Kevin Mitchell, "Look, I just read Greg Maddux's lips. I'm going to sit fastball here. And I'm going to let the video do the rest of the talking."
High drive into deep right field. It is a grand slam home run. Will Clark, one of the great hitters in the National League, one of the great hitters in baseball, has a double and 2 home runs, one of them a grand slam, and that has broken it wide open. The Giants 8 and the Cubs 3.
So there you have it, folks. Will Clark hits that ball out into right field, a grand slam, Game 1 NLCS. That kind of was the catalyst. Clark had a huge game. That was the catalyst to the Giants winning that, then going on to the World Series where they lost to the Oakland A's in the earthquake-interrupted series. So then, now I'm invested fully as a Giants fan, totally invested into, buying the gear, collecting the cards, rooting for the team day in and day out. And, all through the 90s, in the early 2000s, like I said, totally invested. And eventually around the late 2000s, 2007, 2008, I started to get this feeling that, I'm never going to get to see them win the championship. Then came my favorite memory of all as a Giants fan, and this thing gets me misty-eyed every time. I'm just going to let it roll.
Right-hander for the Giants throws. Swing and a miss! And that's it! The Giants are world champions as they come pouring out of the dugout. Circling Brian Wilson. The bullpen flying in from left center field. Dancing, hugging, and celebrating for all you Giants fans, wherever you are. Giants fans, this party is just getting started.
So there you have it, folks. My Giants finally won the World Series. I had invested 30 years in being a fan. They finally won the World Series. Brian Wilson gets Nelson Cruz for the last out. The Giants come pouring out of the dugout, as Dwayne Kuiper says on the radio call. It was an incredible moment. I have people asking me all the time, were you jumping around? Were you screaming at the top of your lungs? I will tell you, that is not the case. My sports lady Darcy will back me up on this. I sat on the edge of the couch on the verge of tears because I never thought I would see that moment. So there you have it, folks. Those are the moments that led up to, now and what built my fanhood for the Giants. I'm going to come back with a second segment of the show, and that is going to be a segment that's going to just kind of analyze this short 60-game season, what I think I'll see from the Giants, what I hope to see from the Giants. So we will be back in a moment with that segment. I hope you enjoyed the history of Brian Belcito as a Giants fan. All right, welcome back, everybody. So now I want to take you through this season, the 2020 season. Right now, as I'm filming this, we're 2 days away from the opener where the Giants go into Chavez Ravine to face Clayton Kershaw and the Dodgers. The Dodgers are going to be the heavy favorites in the National League this year, as they have been the last few years, and rightfully so. You know what? It is a rivalry, but I respect it like no other rivalry in sports. Now, on to my team, the Giants. So, the last couple of years have been a little bit painful coming off of that run of 3 titles in 5 seasons, which, again, going back to the segment before, I never thought I was going to see them win 1 championship, let alone 3 and 5. So, and then they made the playoffs in 2016, was hoping that they could do it again, but you know what, it just wasn't meant to be. The Cubbies knocked us out. The rest is history. The Cubs won a championship for the first time in 100 years or so. So, going into 2020, it's going to be an interesting time for the Giants. You've got the whole truncated season because of COVID, no seats, no fans in the seats. You got the social distancing. The dugouts look a little different. Some of the players will be wearing masks. Some of them won't. I'd like to think I would wear a mask because I think it looks pretty cool. It's also a socially conscious thing for them to be doing, which is always a good thing. But anyway, so we're ushering in a new era in Giants baseball with this season. So out goes Bruce Bochy as our manager. We've got Gabe Kapler, who's coming off of 2 less than impressive seasons as the manager of the Philadelphia Phillies. We've got an entirely reshuffled front office for the Giants being led by Farhan Zaidi. Lots of different philosophies coming out of the front office, which Kapler fits with our new VP of baseball, Zaidi. They have a history together. Down in SoCal, they were in similar positions with the Dodgers. Kapler wasn't the manager, but he was in charge of player personnel and things like that, player development. So I'm interested. I'm willing to give Kapler a shot, see what happens. He's added. It's going to add a lot of that analytics side, whereas Bochy was more of an old school, play it by the hunch, play it by the feeling and stuff like that, whereas these guys are going to be running everything through the analytics computer, the shredder, as Major League Baseball Network would call it, and see what comes out on the other side. So I'm really interested to see, but it is a rebuilding era that we're going into, or we're in the middle of. The core of the team, the core of the champion, there's a few players from the core left. You've got Buster Posey, although he has decided to sit out the season for family reasons. He doesn't want to expose his newly adopted infants to COVID-19. Much respect to that. I will have a story about that over the weekend here on Sports Rambling. You also have, from the core of the championship years, you've got Brandon Crawford, the shortstop, Brandon Belt, the first baseman, and you've also got Hunter Pence, who was on board for a couple championships too, and he's back on board with the Giants after a year in Texas. So that'll be interesting to see how those guys lead all these young guys that are coming up. I think that the most consistent everyday player that we're going to have is going to be Mike Yastrzemski. And if that name sounds familiar to you, that is the grandson of Red Sox Hall of Famer Carl Yastrzemski. Mike Yastrzemski had a great season last year, a breakout season for the Giants. So I look for big things. I look for him to be penciled into the lineup on the daily. If you don't, Kapler, I'm going to be disappointed with that. You've also got Mauricio Dubon, who is moving from second base, a natural second baseman, and he's learning to play center field. And from what I hear, the experiment is going pretty well. So he's going to be another interesting guy to follow. You have also got some role players and guys that are going to be splitting time in positions, guys like Austin Slater, Wilmer Flores. The Panda is still around from the championship years. I forgot to add him to the core members, but yep, he's still around from those years. So those guys are going to be probably your middle of the order, your everyday guys. Evan Longoria is another one. So I'm looking forward to seeing how those guys come together as a lineup. Some of the young guys that I'm looking to see, that they should be getting their feet wet a little bit, especially now. This one's tough. He was the number 2 pick in the draft a few years ago. He's gotten hurt twice. His name is Joey Bart. He's a catcher. When he has played, he's gotten hurt twice in his minor league career so far. When he has played, the guy has torn the cover off of the ball. I am super excited to see what happens with him this season when they do get him into the lineup. I have a feeling that they're going to play around with his service time a little bit at the beginning of the season, maybe wait a week or so to give him some ABs. I'm hoping that after that time is up and they've given him that week off to start the season, so his clock doesn't start ticking on his contract time, all that free agency jargon that you're going to hear about that going forward. I'm hoping that once he gets in the lineup, they pencil him in consistently, because he's got a big bat and he's got an elite arm for a catcher. He throws guys out on the regular. I'm just excited about this guy. Now, it's going to be interesting next season if Bart starts to develop. What happens with Posey? I think Posey goes and plays first base. Bart becomes your everyday catcher of the future, and you go from there. So, on to the pitching real quick. The rotation is looking like it's going to be veteran-laden up at the top. Some big contracts in Johnny Cueto and Jeff Samardzija. Cueto coming back from Tommy John surgery a couple years ago. Looking forward to seeing what he has in the tank. I always have liked watching Johnny Cueto pitch, no matter what team he's on. So, hey, maybe him and Jeff Samardzija can up their value, and somebody that's contending after 20 games comes over and gives us a prospect. I doubt it. I doubt there's going to be a lot of trades this year. But anyway, after those two, you got Kevin Gausman, Drew Smiley, and then you got 4 or 5 guys competing for that 5th spot. The one I'm keeping my eyes on is the youngster Logan Webb. He pitched last year. He had some up and down performances over the course of, he pitched about half the season for the Giants. So I'm looking forward to seeing how he's developed and see what happens in this COVID-shortened season. So there you have it, folks. That is a rundown of how I became a Giants fan, some of my big moments in my history as a San Francisco Giants fan. I die hard with this team. I celebrate even harder with them when they give me good moments to celebrate. So I'm excited. I think baseball is going to be interesting to follow because of everything that's going on in society. It's a welcome old friend coming back to kick its feet up on our coffee table, and hopefully it's here with us for a couple months. If I had to give you a prediction on what I think the Giants are going to do, I'll be happy with a 500 record, 30-30. I'll be ecstatic with anything above that, but I'm thinking somewhere in the 27-33 area is probably realistic for these guys, given the talent that they have. It's a mix of older players, core players from the championship, some free agents that look like they may be around for a year or so, as the Giants quickly developing minor league system, those younger players start to come up to the majors. So there you have it, folks. I'm looking for them to be probably middle of the pack if they get to 500. If they end the season at 500, I'll be super excited as a building block. But again, who knows what we're going to get out of this season. This is unprecedented stuff. So anyway, that's my time for today, folks. I really appreciate you hanging in there with me as we talk about the San Francisco Giants. I'm going to be doing a baseball overview once a week. This weekend, I'm hoping to get a season preview where I give you my predictions for the entire league and whatnot. So anyway, like I said, that's my time. I appreciate you stopping in with me, and I will see you on the next episode of Sports Rambling with Brian Belcito. Play ball, baby.